So Shannon, you were there. How similar are these situations?
They're very similar, Skip. I remember this like yesterday. Skip, we had just lost the AFC Championship game. And you remember I told you this on Monday. We had just lost the AFC Championship game. We lost 10-7 to Buffalo. They would go on to later lose. And John, knowing, seeing our situation, wanted a receiver. John wanted someone that he felt could help us win. And the selection of a quarterback, John's thinking, hell, everybody's thinking, how the hell is this guy going to help us win? Now, Skip, remind you, John was just going into his 10th season. John was drafted in 83. 92 would have been his 10th NFL season. So John was about 32, and he's playing well. And this happens. Now, there had been some rumblings. And, Skip, okay, Skip, I'm just going to go ahead and give a little bit. I ain't going to give all the tea, but I'm going to give you a little bit of the tea. Now, it was told to me, John called his own plays. Back then, a lot of quarterbacks called their own plays. And John called his own plays. And so Mike Shanahan, who later became the head coach, was the offensive coordinator. John calling his own plays. Dan is thinking, I wonder what John's going to call here. Mike says, I believe he'll call this situation, he'll call this play. Lo and behold, John would call that play. They were scripting plays, but they didn't tell Dan. Dan fired Mike at the end of the season, took a quarterback. Now, prior to the 91 season, Skip, they had tried to trade John. People didn't know this. They had a deal. They were having a deal in place. They were having discussion with Washington. Mr. Bolin had to intervene and says, that's not happening on my watch. John Beat was the GM. Lyde Huggins was the player personnel director. They were doing this, Mr. Bolin let them have a lot of control. Dan had the ultimate say. They were going to move on from John, and Mr. Bolin nipped that in the bud. After the 92 season, they fired Coach Reeves. There was always bad blood. Skip, we would go to training camp. It was kind of like Green Bay. We rode bikes to practice. Everybody bring their bike up. We would ride bikes to practice, lock them up in the gymnasium, get on the bikes, go back. 2 people had golf carts. John Elway had a golf cart. Dan Reeves had a golf cart. They would drive by each other, not look at each other. And I'm like, I don't think that's how it's supposed to. Skip, I'm young, Skip. I'm not the player that I would become. I'm not really. But, I hear guys talking about, man, that thing is getting really contentious between Coach Reeves and John. I'm like, I just think it's odd they don't really do a whole lot of speaking unless it's on the practice field and it's, okay, play call, yada, yada, yada. But, Skip, what you're seeing here is that Dan wanted to show, you might want a receiver. I run this ship. We're going to take what I want. Aaron Rodgers probably want a receiver. But what the general manager and the head coach say, we run this ship. You don't run nothing here but your mouth. And we're tired of it. So this is what we're going to do. And, Skip, it's hard to see a scenario that they're going to fire a guy that just went 13-3. So this might be a situation where John won that power struggle. Mr. Bolin fired Dan. I don't believe Aaron Rodgers will win this power struggle. And he'll probably be the one that's going to have to uproot and take and plant somewhere else.
So, by the way, you said that John felt like he needed a receiver in that next draft after you lost 10-7 at Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. But I thought he had big play Shea. I thought he had Shannon Sharpe on a Hall of Fame trajectory. You caught 3 balls in the AFC Championship game. That's not enough. He needed 6 or 8 from his tight end, and you could only give him 3 against that Buffalo defense?
But here's the thing, Skip. But the next year, I went 7, 14. I think I caught 52. My third year, which was 92, Skip. And that's how it started because the receivers started getting nicked, and John would just feed me. I like, feed your boy, feed your boy. I'll put that work in back then, Skip. And then it took off. But, the 3 amigos, Skip, they were starting to get old. And they were small. Everybody was going to the big receiver. You saw the Jared Rices and the Sterling Sharps and the Michael Urbans. They was going to the big receivers, and we had these small receivers. When you have a small receiver, that's good, Skip, if they're open. But tough, contested throws, it gets hard for a guy that's 5'8", 5'9", as opposed to a guy that's 6'3", 6'4". 6'2". And so John wanted someone that could help us now, not somebody that was going to help down the road. And John's like, oh, so that's what you want to do? That's how you want to play it? Okay, we'll play it like that then.
Okay, so John Elway was actually 31 when they drafted Tommy Maddox out of UCLA with the 25th overall pick. So it's similar, late first round, take a flyer on, because you were obviously in the AFC Championship game, so you're drafting at the bottom of the first round. And yet it's surprising to me that John had... He didn't have his best year that year, but I think he was very unhappy. To your point, he was 13 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, but you did go 12-4. You did get to the championship game. You did lose a 3-point game, not a 30-point game. And yet John was quoted as saying recently that there's no way he would have come back the next year if Dan Reeves had still been there, because he said the previous 3 years, to your point, had been hell. He was not having fun being coached by Dan Reeves. And it had gotten so contentious that one of them did have to go. And to your point, Mr. Bolin stepped in and had to pick a side. But I'm surprised he didn't pick a side before the draft, which was in what, April, I assume that year, sometime in April. Why didn't he go ahead and take his stand against Dan Reeves before the draft? Because it sounds like Dan had a lot of input into taking Tommy Maddox to provide him some leverage against John Elway, right?
Well, Skip, I'm not so sure that that Dan divulged everything about what they were going to take. I'm not so sure that Mr. B knew that he was going to take, because Mr. B was very hands-off, Skip. He wasn't one of those owners that, he might be sitting there, if they took a kicker, he's like, oh, he must be pretty good. He trusted. When Mr. B hired someone, Skip, he trusted them to do their job. He put Dan, and Dan had John Beek and Lyde Huggins. He trusted them to do their job. I'm glad John said it, because, Skip, I could sense it, but like I said, Skip, I wasn't observant. Hell, I'm just trying to keep my job. I'm not worried about somebody else getting the job. But you knew, Skip, you knew it was just like, because most of the conversation was between Mike and John. And I understand the offensive coordinator is going to be close, but they had a very, very, very close relationship. And because remember, Skip, he was when Mike came back, Skip, because Mike came back in 90 because he had got fired from the Raiders. Remember, he was John's original coordinator. He gets the head job at Oakland. Al Davis fires him 20 games into his season. He comes back after 20 games. He comes back. He starts off. He was not the offensive coordinator. Chan Galen was the coordinator. Chan Galen gets the job at Birmingham. Then Mike gets promoted to OC. Man, Skip. I'm glad John telling this, because I ain't want to put all the business out there, Skip.
I got it. So here's the point. John was only 31, and clearly he had a whole lot left in the tank, because he made 6 more Pro Bowls after that. And obviously, thanks in part to you also and Terrell Davis a lot, he won 2 Super Bowls. He played in 2 more and won 2 Super Bowls after he'd gotten blown out in the 3 previous that he had played to the drafting of Tommy Maddox. So Tommy Maddox comes in, and the next year, you'll remember, 92, John got hurt and missed 4 games, and Tommy played 4 games and wasn't very good. He went 0 for 4 in those 4 games, and I witnessed one because I was covering the Cowboys, who on December 6th of that year played at your place, right? Remember this one? And my Cowboys won 31-27. Do you remember that? And I don't know what happened to Shay Sharpe, but he caught only 3 balls for 16 yards. I don't know. Maybe it's Tommy Maddox's fault. I don't know. I didn't notice Shannon Sharpe that day.
They were using your boy as a fullback. Skip, John missed John got hurt early. John missed 8 games that year because he came back. We won a game, and we needed to beat Kansas City, and we would have been the wild card in 92. We ended up losing to Kansas City the last game of the season because that was when Coach Reeves was alternating Tommy Maddox and Sean Moore, kind of like what he did with Roger Staubach and Craig Morton, Skip. That was the first time I'd ever seen. I've seen running backs alternate series or wide receivers come in and out, but I had never seen a situation where quarterbacks One quarterback would come in, run a play. He comes off the field. Then the next quarterback would come in and run a play. And I'm like,
okay,
this seems odd. But, Skip, it was really contentious there. And I think it's going to be like that in Green Bay this year, too.
So let me fast forward this into this current situation in Green Bay. The betting sites are telling you now that Green Bay's 13-3 was way overrated and fluky because Fox Bet, as we speak, has the over-under on Green Bay wins going to next year at 9. So they're saying the target is 9-7 next year. Caesars has the over-under right now at 8.5. They're saying it's just barely above a 500 target for the Green Bay Packers. So Gutekunst, the GM, and obviously LaFleur, the coach, they're seeing the handwriting of, wait a second, we know we weren't that great last year. We weren't 13-3 great, and we need to look to the future because Aaron wasn't as good as the numbers would indicate. And just because we got to the AFC Championship game and got blown out isn't indicative of where we're heading the next year and the next, hence Jordan Love. Well, all I know, bottom line is Jordan Love better be better than Tommy Maddox ever was. Tommy had a stint in Pittsburgh as the starter, and he was okay. Right. But they need Jordan Love to be Aaron Rodgers for this to work out.
Skip, one of the things that rubbed John the wrong way is that the guy in his class, Dan Marino, was throwing for 15 trillion yards. And Dan was not allowing John to throw until we fell behind by 14 points. He saw Kelly. He saw Montana. He saw Warren Moon. All these guys being able to throw. And all he's doing is handoff. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not a handoff type of guy. I can put up numbers just like they can. And it started and everybody was like, when they started talking about great quarterbacks, they started really leaving him out of the conversation because his numbers wasn't reflective of just how great he was because Dan wouldn't allow him to throw the football. But we get behind, and then he's like, okay, John, go make miracles happen. He could do that, and that bothered John. And you see what John became once, Dan left, Jim Foster came as the offensive coordinator, and John had his only 4,000-yard season in '93. Thanks to your boy. Thanks to your boy, Skip.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.